Hey everybody. I often have people ask me the question, what do I do at the start of a project? And of course the answer is, well, it depends on what the project's about. What I put together in this lesson is just some information about what kind of information do you need to look for based on the kind of project you're working on. So what I've done is I've made some categories of projects, and I said, okay, for this category of project, typically the information you need is this kind of information. And then I've given some examples of actual projects so you can see how that applies in context in a real project. Now, this is guidelines, so I don't want you to take this and say, Jerry said this is the only information that I need for this project. No. So what I've given you is some guidelines, a starting point, a way to think about your project. Any particular project, you may find other things that you need to know. Plus, all I'm putting here is the starting point. I'm not giving you every kind of requirement you're ever going to need on that project, because for a lot of projects you're going to need every kind of requirement over time. But what I want to give you is where to start. What's the important information that you need to start with to get the project going, and as you work on the project you're going to find the additional information that you need to collect. Okay, so with that caveat, I want to show you some sample projects, and here I put a little table of contents so you can see what's in here. I've categorized the projects three different ways. Corporate internal projects, so that's your typical IT kind of project. Creating a product for sale. We're going to look at things in a little different way when we're creating products that we're going to sell to someone else than if we're doing a project inside the company. And then the third category I made was business process projects, because again those are going to look pretty different from the other two. And then under each category I have several different kinds of projects. So under corporate internal we're going to look at maintaining existing software, installing third-party software, updating third-party software, and creating new software. If we're creating a product for sale, we'll look at maintaining an existing product, creating a new product in an existing line of business, and creating all new software. And then finally, under business process projects, we have write the business processes for a new company, change or add a business goal or corporate direction, and update a business process. So again, these aren't every possible kind of project you could ever be involved with, but I think it gives a nice overview of pretty typical projects that we're involved with as business analysts. Our company is going to create new software. So we're going to create new software we're going to use internally for our own use. So what do we need to know? Well, what business processes are we implementing? Who's going to use this new software? How are they going to use it? And what are the need for things such as availability, performance, accessibility, and security? I didn't worry about those so much with the other projects because they were updates, so we figured it was already addressed. Okay, our example project. I have a group of medical clinics, and they're using spreadsheets to track and manage all the drugs that they have. So what do we need? We need to describe the current process, the as-is process, and determine what about that process needs to be kept the same and what can we change. Because we're writing new code, so we have a lot of flexibility here. Your requirement type, you're going to document process. What are the processes people are following, and collect examples of any reports and spreadsheets they're currently producing. That's going to be really important as well. The clinics want to set up a centralized system to manage the information. So I need to determine what the new process is going to be, the to-be process. So the requirement type is going to document processes in any way that we have to do it. We'll have business rules. We'll have report specifications. We might have user interface mock-ups. We might have some other information as well. But this is the basic information we need, is the processes. So the team will have the current process and they'll have the new process. And the new process is what will be coded in the software. And knowing what the old process is will help us come up with training to help people migrate to the new system. And also having the old process helps us figure out what the new process needs to be. Okay, what else? The clinicians will use this new system whenever drugs are needed, and they're going to use it to find out where the oldest drugs are located because we want to use the oldest drugs first. You need to know the rules for locating the drugs and the physical environment where this happens to see where we can reasonably set up to access the data. I mean, are we going to need this information in an operating parlor? Are we going to need this information when the doctor's in a room with a patient? Can we wait and access this information after the patient is out in the reception area, perhaps? So we need to know where we're going to have to do this work so we know what kind of technology is appropriate. So our requirement type here will be business rules and technical constraints. I also, one of the things I missed on the one above, report specifications and data. How can I forget data? So we're going to have a database with this. So clearly we need, when we set up our centralized system, our 2B processes, we need to know how we're going to report on it, and we need to know what the data is that we're keeping. I missed that one. So you're going to get the whole, as I'm updating this, I'm going to have this, it's a PDF below the video, so you're going to have the updated one since I'm changing it as I make the recording. Okay, so we're going to then use the system, find out, how the clinicians will use the system, where are they going to be located when they use it? Do we need to provide an interface on an iPad or an iPhone or a Palm Pilot, another PDA? What kind of equipment is going to be appropriate? Well, that will depend on physically where the clinicians are going to use the system. So we want to collect that information. And finally, this system must be available most of the time 24/7. It must be reasonably fast, whatever that means, and secure so that only clinicians can access the data, and the system will only be used at a clinic. Okay, so now we know it isn't going to be used out in the field. People are going to come into a clinic. But we need to discover what all these constraints are on the system: physical location, security, availability, performance, other kinds of constraints. And so our requirement type here are our technical constraints. Okay, so a new project, this is the kind of thing we typically see, right? Is people say, you read all the books and everything and they talk about, collecting requirements for a new project. But you can see that this is quite a different process from updating third-party software or from installing third-party software. So you really want to think about what kind of project you're doing when you think about what kind of information you need to collect. And again, remember, these are guidelines. It's a starting point for you. Thank you for listening.